All right. Since you asked for it, these are my builds, season 23 so far. I have a couple things written down here. This is going to be a little bit rougher than usual. A couple things before we start. No, I do not care that much about stat spreads. I really can't be bothered to farm master dungeons unless duality is the rotator. And even then, getting good high stat gear for the spreads I want has been a massive pain. My armor is not even close to ideal right now, besides on a couple select builds. Stat spread doesn't mean a whole heck of a lot much to me. As long as I can get the two main stats to at least 180, I'm all set. Moral of the story is I usually try to get 100 resilience no matter what the builds, no matter what game mode, and then you just pick a second stat you get as close to 100 depending on the build. There are rare circumstances that I care enough to get triple hundreds, but you'll see that soon. Also, nothing for nothing, not a lot weapon-wise is going to change between the characters. I mainly use the same workhorses on every single character. I just change a couple things around depending on the activity, but I normally use whatever I think is the most fun possible at times, considering, if you're not having fun, why even playing the game? And with that mindset, you open yourself up to, maximum possibilities, thinking, hey, this axe gun here, this thing is supposed to be trash, but I'm having a lot of fun using it. See Cerberus +1, for example. One more thing before I kick off. Most build grafting comes down to just pick your exotic plus pick your exotic weapon. Mods are much, much less important than they were before Armor 3.0. With the removal of element-specific subtypes of armor and element-specific armor mods. Subclass building is arguably more important than mod crafting at this point, but I'm not going to get too far into that for the purpose of this video. Only on a couple select builds you're going to see what I use for mods. I do have a couple things saved in loadouts here that I am going to show off, but apart from that, it's pretty simple. Everything else I have written down right now is just make some stuff up as I go through my build, so that's what I'm going to do right now. I'm going to try to do most of this in one take if I can. Alright, so starting us off, we have what I think is my favorite build of ever since it got introduced into the game. Gear Falcon's Horbjerg plus anything Void, really. My Gear Falcons isn't even that good. Volatile rounds are just so crazy even after the changes to it. It doesn't matter that you're not getting the overshield or the extra damage unless you do the finisher, because just simply being able to get volatile rounds from clicking your class ability, it's absolutely insane. And the gun I use it the most with is Commemoration. I use Reconstruction Killing Tally. It's just absolutely perfect, Killing Tally get up to, I think, 120 something rounds in the magazine with this thing. You pop your invisibility via class ability when you're using the Void Vanishing step, and what you're doing is you're getting invisible, you're getting your volatile rounds, you're using them for as many shots in the magazine as you can get without going underneath 63, and then you're using your vanishing step a second time. Ideally, that way you're getting the full refresh of the timer for 2 sets of volatile rounds without losing the bonus from Killing Tally, because the Killing Tally bonus goes away whenever you reload, but if you reload over the maximum amount, you're not actually losing it. So you are able to do that, even though you're only getting extra 63 rounds. It's still a lot. And usually with Commemoration, I'm pairing it with some variation of Void secondary if I want to do Overkill plus Quicksilver Storm. Quicksilver Storm, Commemoration, and a random secondary weapon to fill your needs. I like using Cartesian Coordinate. This one isn't the best, but it has Vorpal weapon on it. I've enjoyed using Indebted Kindness. I know people aren't a big fan of the Pocket Rocket sidearm, but this one specifically, it's just so easy to use. Just having Volt Shot to apply Joel in the beacon rounds, even though people don't really like beacon rounds. I'm a big fan of the beacon rounds, so I do think that it is a relatively good thing to use, but there really isn't much more you need for a workhorse hunter build than this. If you can get Commemoration even remotely as good as the one I have plus Gear Falcons, you're going to be golden. Besides this, the build I would say I use the most besides it is going to revolve around Celestial Nighthawk as I grab a legendary armor piece from my vault. I've been using Celestial Nighthawk a whole heck of a lot with Polaris Lance in some version of this build. This is the default. This is the default GM endgame activity build. Really, if I'm doing something that is 20 light levels higher than me, this is the build that I'm probably going to be using. You get absolutely everything, including overload, should you choose this season at least to be using overload rocket launchers. I'm just a big fan of everything involving this build to get your big one-shot potential from Celestial Nighthawk. We already know how good Polaris Lance is. I did an entire GM rotation. Every single GM this season, I just used Polaris Lance. It's just so easy with the artifact mods this season. By the way, my artifact mod typically does not change from this. The only time my artifact mod is going to change from this is when I'm doing any solo GM or any solo activity. I will take off Argent Ordnance and I will put on Solar Operator, because if I'm doing a solo activity, I am more likely than not, I'm not going to be using a rocket launcher, so the Argent Ordnance isn't the most useful, but Argent Ordnance is much, much more useful this season, especially considering that Apex Predator, this is by far my favorite rocket launcher of the season, having the 4 rockets from Reconstruction and Bipod. Despite the fact you're losing a little bit of damage, you just get to put out just so many rockets at once. I think you can have like 14 rockets at max when you have maximum solar reserves. And the Argent Ordnance, you're getting the bonus damage on each and every single one of those. You're getting 4 rockets, all with Argent Ordnance. If you're spending an armor charge to activate it, it's just way too good. I've already sung the praises of Polaris Lance enough. I've been enjoying Fatebringer a lot. I picked up a new Fatebringer, put it back into my Arsenal Weapons. So I say picked up, I mean took it out of my vault. This one I've had since Season of the Splicer, when this thing was introduced. So that's where I've been for there. Besides that, I think my third most used build this season has to be the build I'm using most of the time in Crucible, which is some variation of this monstrosity. I know whenever anybody sees someone using 6 Coyote plus Threaded Spectre in the Crucible, they're probably thinking throttling spam, and yes, it's exactly what it is. This is one of those rare cases where I care enough about the build in Crucible to just abuse it the most. This is getting nerfed very, very soon. There's actually a TWID that's going to be coming out today, or tomorrow rather. It'll be today for you when you're watching this video. It's tomorrow for me recording this video. It's the 14th right now, pretty late at night when I'm doing this. But this is usually typically when I'm running. I've been using Lethal Abundance plus any secondary weapon. I usually like to run legendaries. I don't know why. I'm not a big fan of exotics in Crucible. I know a lot of them have utility. Duality is my favorite exotic this season. I ended up in the process of doing the Catalyst video, got this thing, and just realized how absolutely incredible this was. You know, I said before, the plus 20 range on the Catalyst is enough to make this thing to put it simply, a nightmare. It is so crazy good. I recommend everybody try out Duality. And besides that, Immortal, something that I've not been really using a lot. Pay no attention to the trackers, really. I forget to do the trackers a lot, and normally my default tracker is always going to be the Vanguard tracker. So I know someone said, oh, your tracker has blank amount of kills on it. I really don't care. I haven't gone flawless in a minute, so I don't have a better Immortal than this right now, but target lock is getting nerfed, so this has fallen out of my arsenal in recent weeks. My favorite SMG in the game right now to use is Shire's Wrath, and with Shire's Wrath, I'm always going to be pairing it with either a primary sniper, which is on one of my other characters right now. You'll see that in a couple of minutes, or Conditional Finality. Conditional Finality, by far the best shotgun in the entire game right now. The sheer shutdown potential. I can't begin to sing the praises of this thing enough. If you can't get it, I'm sorry. If you can get it, great. Besides that, primary shotgun, Chaperone. I've been using slugs a lot more, as you can tell by the, by me singing Duality's praises and using Chaperone a lot more. I think that select shotguns are just consistently great, considering that they're impossible to nerf unless you change the one-shot kill potential of them. They're just so good. When running Chaperone, I like to do some variant of a Void build. I don't use Omnioculus too much, Omnioculus too much, but I can't. I don't have. I don't have a particularly good one, but you know, max strength Omnioculus. Everybody already knows how annoying this thing is. Just abusing invisibility, getting the little bit of DR from Omnioculus and the Chaperone. It really is enough to just cancel out flinch sometimes and just absolutely dome people right in the forehead. I don't really use any other build in Crucible besides this, so it's really just been switching around my choice of weapon. Thorn is crazy, everybody knows it. It got nerfed, but it doesn't matter. Glacial Chasm is my favorite secondary this season, just getting the automatic high impact reserves whenever you spawn in, just because the magazine is 5 and you only spawn in with 2 rounds, is super good. I don't have the best Gnawing Hunger. My Gnawing Hunger has auto-loading holster kill clip, which on paper does not make sense, and it doesn't. I really don't even use the auto-loading holster function of this, but if you can get a good Gnawing Hunger can compete with many of the best, and it's a good way to counterplay most SMGs that are going to be just rushing you, you know, just strafing backwards, or you're getting shotgunned down. Just go get a Gnawing Hunger and just walk backwards. Hold the S key and shoot at them, and you'll be fine. Heavy weapons, I don't really use heavy weapons that much in Crucible. The only one I use is Cataphract. This particular Cataphract, the only reason I do use it is because of field prep. I don't know if it makes any difference. All I know is that when I do this, it gives me 3 shots in the magazine, and I haven't even bothered fully masterworking it, even though it is a velocity masterwork, so it should be helpful in theory, but I don't use heavy weapons that much in Crucible. If I get ammo, great. If I don't, I'm not too bothered by it. So what else for hunter builds do I use besides those 3? So the main ones I use, I said, Gear Falcon, 6 Coyote, and the Celestial Nighthawk. Besides that, that's what I stick with mainly as a hunter main, but I do pull out some other things time to time just to be, you know, a little bit fancy. I enjoy using shards of Galanor builds. I know it's not as good as it used to be, but, you know, again, 33% of your super back at it, 33 to 50% of your super back at any given time, depending on the type of enemy that you're killing. It's always going to be great. It's been a funny haha trying to use Arthur's Embrace with the weighted throwing knife. I feel like the tracking has gotten nerfed whenever it comes to the weighted throwing knife bounces, so I haven't been using that a lot. There's a funny solar build that you can do with Caliban's Hand, Incendiary Grenade, and the Proximity Throwing Knife. You combine these things with the Skyburner's Oath. I don't have the Skyburner's Oath on this character or even in my vault at the moment. Deleted it just to make space, but if you hit anybody with Incendiary Grenade plus 1 proc of Skyburner's Oath, it's an instant detonation. If you hit somebody with the Caliban's Hand Proximity Knife plus 1 shot of Skyburner's, instant detonation. If you hit him with the Incendiary Grenade and the Proximity Explosive Knife, well, you're just gonna have a great time. It's a good build. I'm a big fan of using it. It's not the most effective. It's really just a troll build, more often than not in Crucible. Of the subclasses this season, I'm running Void the most, Strength second most, Solar third most, and besides that, it's basically an even split between Revenant and Arcstrider. Whenever I'm using Revenant, the only time I'm using Revenant is when I am doing this. I don't have the primary that I normally use. I don't know where it went, but I'm typically doing something like this in Crucible. I made a video about it a while ago when I was doing my run through of all of the subclasses, playing with the Mask of Bactress and Horsley's Adept. This thing is the best energy pulse rifle in the entire game. It does literally everything. If you don't have one, I'm sorry. I don't know if it's in the rotator for GMs right now, even though Corrupted is in the GM rotation. Whenever you're able to get a Horsley's Adept, you can get a regular one from the Vanguard Kiosk, but once you can get a Horsley's with Kill Clip, Zen Moment, or, Kill Clip, some people like Under Pressure, Steady Hands, those other perks you can run. I had one for a while with Heating Up Kill Clip. I thought it was okay just because you're getting 6 seconds rather of the extra stability recoil, and you're getting more accuracy. Whenever you're using Heating Up Kill Clip, that one is sitting somewhere in my vault. I actually don't know where it is. I have dim up on my other screen. No, it is this one. Okay, yeah, heating up Kill Clip, but I switched over to Zen Moment just to be able to battle, just be able to battle a little bit easier. So this is a build that you're only taking in Crucible. There's no reason to use this in any other regular activity. It's not good. Stasis is just in a really bad spot right now for endgame PvE activities. Speaking of in a really bad spot right now, Arc Strider is also in an incredibly bad spot. There's 2 builds that I'm using when I'm doing Arc Strider. Something with pulse grenades, just to activate Risk Runner immediately, or skip grenades plus Shinobu's Vow. Shinobu's Vow is it's a very tragic story. It's one of my favorite exotics in the game. It has been one of my favorite exotics since Destiny 1, since it got introduced in Rise of Iron, I believe, and it just makes me sad because skip grenades aren't good anymore. Even though with the Arc 3.0 changes, they were much better in Season of the Pirate, my least favorite season, but Arc just really isn't good right now. I mean, I didn't even take the time to pull out Raiden Flux to put it in the chest armor just to show you, how bad it is. If you're using Arc, what you're doing is you're using Gathering Storm, and you're either using a skip grenade build or you're using Star Eater Scales. I have the ornament on these right now, so you can't really recognize them, but using that and Star Eater Scales and just getting the massive tick of damage. But if you have any other teammate using Gathering Storm, you might as well not even do that because the damage just doesn't stack. And most damage phases aren't even long enough to support using 2 Gathering Storms. Took a little pause there to catch my breath, but getting back into this, other builds that I enjoy using, 6 Coyote is just a general, here's something you can use if you just don't have anything else to use on Hunter. Mainly when I'm using 6 Coyote, I'm doing a Radiant Acrobat. I'm doing a Radiant Acrobat dodge build, trying to get triple 100s, whatever. I know there's a way I can get triple 100s with this build. I just kind of forget how I was able to do it in the past on Solar, just because you need to knock your discipline and resilience down to make this build work. But using 6 Coyote, this thing right here, Lethal Abundance is abundantly lethal. The perk Slice is the reason why this works. Casting your class ability allows this weapon to sever, so you're getting sever, you're getting the strand damage, and you're getting the actual good high impact frame. I have 2. I have one of these with Onslaught, and I have another one of these. If I can find it in the vault real quick, I'm just typing out. I have the other one with Target Lock. I think Target Lock is massively overrated. I think Onslaught is a little better, especially because Onslaught doesn't decrease your damage anymore. So you're just getting a better, quote-unquote, version of Rampage with Onslaught. I like Onslaught much better than Rampage for all intents and purposes, but this thing is wild. It is so stable, good magazine, good everything. This is probably the best Iron Banner weapon that we've seen in 4 seasons. This one I actually got during the second to last Iron Banner, so I've only had it for about 2 months now. So I was using my other one with Target Lock for much longer than this one with Onslaught, and it just shows you, like, I just prefer Onslaught much more. Besides these weapons, the only thing here that I haven't talked about is Witherhoard, for obvious reasons. Everybody knows how good Witherhoard is. If you're doing any endgame PvE activity, Witherhoard plus a secondary weapon that has a built-in damage buff is preferred, and you can do basically whatever the heck you want if you're using Witherhoard. It makes essentially no difference to me. Besides that, Malfeasance, I always keep Malfeasance on whenever I'm doing any activity, even if I'm not using it as a primary. I'm sorry, I don't take Malfeasance into Crucible because it's too gimmicky to work in there. but any other endgame PvP activity, using Malfeasance is just run out of ammo, switch to Malfeasance is the only way I can say it. It's just really good. Never would recommend using it as a mainstay damage option, but certain builds you're allowed to do that with, especially if you can't change your loadout. Like there's certain taken strikes, you know, if you want to say, if you don't want to use Polaris Lance and you're playing like Lake of Shadows or whatever, farming Lake of Shadows, but I'd use Polaris Lance anyway. You can bring in Malfeasance just for the extra damage to Taken. Besides this, Arbalist, I always keep an Arbalist around, even though I haven't used it that much this season. It's always something good to have in the back pocket. Besides this, Fellwinter's is a solid shotgun. I can't remember if they changed this thing. I am like 99% sure that this thing used to be a 180 hand cannon, and I never used it, but somehow, somewhere, it got changed to a 140, and even though this thing doesn't have a built-in damage perk, Incandescent and Stats for All does enough to me. Incandescent can proc Stats for All if you hit multiple people with the weapon, from what I've noticed, and I think this thing is one of the sickest hand cannons in the entire game. It just feels so good to use. It's one of the old Destiny 1 hand cannon models, so all the old models are my favorite models. So this thing just feels really clean to use all the time. This is just a workhorse. Whenever I'm using this thing, I'm believe running it with Arbalist, and I don't have the rocket launcher on this character, but when I'm running this, I'm usually running this with a Crowning Duolog or Hothead. The stasis from the event that's really dumb. I can't remember what it's called, but it's a Strand rocket launcher. It's the one where you're in the sky base, and Hothead is just a good all-around rocket launcher. If you don't have a good Apex Predator, getting a good Hothead is almost as easy to do. And besides this, couple other builds that I use. Gemini Jester is a build I use in Crucible. Not too often. It's always good for information. It's better when doing scrims or any other sort of pseudo tournament play, just trying to get better. Using Gemini Jester, it's just a good information tool. Disabling radar. Too many people just clutch rely on their radar. Always have Lucky Pants. Always have Stompies in the inventory. You can never arm either of these Stompies. I don't use as a main anymore. Stompies, everybody knows how good they used to be back in the day, and they got recently changed so that you no longer need your class ability to be full to get the bonus from Stompies. So thank God Bungie making a good decision and reverting a nerf for once. But these are really only pulled out if I need to do a jumping puzzle or something. But even at then, I just use triple jump on all my characters. I'm a triple jump purist. Some people are high jumps, some people are strafe jumps, but I'm a triple jump purist. I have been ever since Taken King, ever since it came out on Void Hunter. Yeah, just triple jump purist. Besides that, I mean, looking at the exotics that I have that I haven't actually talked about, Assassin's Cowl I only use whenever I'm going for solo flawless attempts. I will use Assassin's Cowl, Max Resilience, don't care what else, and I will pick up a Glaive. I don't actually have a Glaive on this character, but depending on the subclass that I'm using, I'm either going to be using Ecliptic to Staff, the Seasonal Glaive from Season of the Defiance. I don't use the Enigma. I know a lot of people like the Enigma. The Albedo Wing isn't the best arc glaive. You're using Edge of Concurrence if you want to use an arc glaive, but even at then, just this thing being able to chain melee kills, chain invisibility. I don't remember what it's called, but I don't have it craftable yet. The glaive from Lubray's Ruin. Lubray's Ruin is the best. This is the best glaive in the game for doing end-game activities. I don't use Nezarac's Whisper. I used to use Nezarac's Whisper, but Lubray's Ruin is just miles better. I always dismantle them, though, because how often am I doing those solo flawless end-game activities? I think the last one I did was, like, Spire the Watcher. I haven't bothered getting around to doing 2 of the new dungeons at this point, because I would rather just use other things. Besides that, Young Hamkar Spines, they're not as good as they used to be, but they're still solid. If I want to do a funny, I'll put on Mothkeeper's Wraps, go on Threadrunner, and use Widow's Silk plus any random grenade, usually grapple, just for no reason at all, just to have 3 charges of grenades, because Mothkeeper's Rasp give you a extra grenade, plus the extra built-in grenade from Widow Silk. You get 3 moths. This is the only time I'm going to be using Moth Keepers. You know, as you can see, I don't even have this masterworked. I rarely use this, but it is a build that I have used this season. It's funny. That's the only thing it is. It's funny. It's like you want to have a good laugh. You want to pretend you're playing a support build. You put on Mothkeeper's Wrath and you use Illumina. Illumina I don't actually have on this character right now. Actually, I don't even think I have Illumina, period, because I don't play a support build enough to justify having one in my vault. So that one is currently gone. But besides that, I believe I've talked about everything besides Wormhusk. Wormhusk is just solid. Throw in Wormhusk if you're struggling to think of anything else to use. And this has taken up the lion's share, the majority of this video. I'm just going to touch on exotic heavy weapons real quick. Most of the time, if you're doing an activity, like I said, I'm using Commemoration and Gear Falcons, but there's certain bosses where Leviathan's Breath is better. I don't remember what she's called, but the second to last boss before Crota, Crota's daughter, the Death Singer, using Leviathan's Breath, 5 Leviathan's Breath absolutely cooks her just because the precision hit modifier, and this thing with the Catalyst is a monster. Tractor Cannon just for support, and Commemoration if I'm doing Void builds. If I'm doing a Solar builds, it's going to be a Celestial Nighthawk plus either Apex Predator or Gallahorn, depending on who's using one. I use Dragon's Breath, but I don't like to use it. I would rather just use other things. And besides that, Two-Tailed Fox is my second favorite rock launcher in the entire game. Besides Apex Predator, I cannot say enough good things about Two-Tailed Fox, especially since ever since they added this Catalyst into the game. It's just such a good damage option. It's crazy to me how slept on this thing is. And Legend of Acreus, I believe in the current meta, works on a single boss, which is the first boss in Ghosts of the Deep. I don't remember his name, but that's the only time when I think I'm using Legend of Acreus. If I'm running Oversoul on Crota, I'll use it on Crota just so I'm not having to manage sword energy. Besides that, I mean, I really, really like Legend of Acreus. I think it's one of the best heavy weapons just for doing anything. If you have a thing that needs to die that you can get within melee range of Legend of Acreus, it doesn't work on most raid bosses, unfortunately. I know you can do some funny things with Golgoroth with Legend of Acreus, but you know, you can't get too close to Golgoroth most of the time, besides on like maybe 3 out of 6 of the puddles. You can't use it on War Priest unless you're playing bad, I guess. You know, for day 1 strategy, you could have either used Legend of Acreus, or you could have either have used the Chainsaw Sword, the Lament. So that's where we're at for Hunter builds. I believe I talked about everything. The only thing I really didn't touch on was Shira's Wrath. Shira's Wrath, I think, is my... No, I talked about Shira's Wrath. It's just my favorite SMG in the game. It's better than Immortal. It's better than Unyielding Tempest. I don't care what you say. This thing just has the best sight picture of an SMG in the entire game. I can't show it off right now just because of the way I'm making this video, but it has the best sight picture in the entire game. Trust me, if you can use this, if you can pick this thing up, just try to use it, especially with the damage perk. I've had this thing since Season of the Splicer. I haven't gotten rid of it. I've gotten adept ones, but it's just nothing could beat this quick draw kill clip with the sprint grip. It's just way too good. All right, I think I'm going to be moving on to my Titan now. Titan, I played just a little bit less than Hunter, but I still played enough to have some things to say about it. Alright, same rules apply for Titan as they do for Hunter. I don't really care about stat spreads. I usually try to pick 1 or 2 stats depending on what I'm doing. I always do 100 resilience, even if I have to sacrifice the other stat I want to use, just because resilience is the best stat in the game right now. And for Titan especially, you have no reason not to run 100 resilience at all time. There just is no reason to run mobility on a Titan, and there's no reason to run recovery on a Titan. It's so easy to get increased health regen, and it's just, you don't need mobility, just you need resilience. Besides that, for Titan, the builds I mainly use are Sunbreaker. That's it. Sunbreaker is the best Titan workhorse in the game right now. For literally everything, if I'm playing Crucible, I'm using Void. The only time I'm not using either Solar or Void on Titan is if I am doing a raid boss that I think I'm going to need Curse of Falling Stars for, which is just Atheon. I don't use Striker besides with a Curse of Falling Stars for anything else besides Atheon in the current Titan landscape. If you need a big burst of damage and you can get close to it, you might as well just be using Pyrogale Gauntlets. Currently, you can get them for free, even if you don't have, even if you don't own the current DLC, by using the Mara's Wish Token system. The system that they just introduced a couple of weeks ago. You can get one free exotic per week from the DLC. You know, if you don't own it, obviously you're going to be taking Nightfall exotics. But the weapons I had on my Hunter were the weapons that I use most on all of my subclasses. The reason why these weapons are here is just because as I was organizing everything, I thought, what are the things that I don't really have anything to say much about, and these are those weapons, but weapons that I still use. Scatter Signal, phenomenal fusion rifle right now. Using this with a Sever build on Titan, Drang's Lash, using this plus Banner of War, and any other secondary weapon that has incandescent on it. I don't use this Igneous Hammer, but it just has incandescent on it for the purpose. Igneous Hammer, this is a weapon that I'm using in Crucible. Keep Away plus incandescent is surprisingly good just for the application of Scorch to stop recovery, and Keep Away, you know, just Keep Away is a great perk altogether, increases range, roll, and accuracy. You know, if you're getting first shots, you're using Keep Away. It's just a better fragile focus in every sense of the word. I have two Unending Tempest that I only use when I'm playing a Bubble Titan class, and with the Bubble Titan, where is it? Peacekeepers plus either Unending Tempest or Unending Tempest. And I don't abuse Cloud Strike. I don't actually have a Cloud Strike in my inventory right now. If I'm using a sniper, I'm more likely to use Adored, and I'm just going to pull that out real quick. Where's Adored? I'll get rid of Oversoul Edict because I don't actually use it. That was just there. We're using Adored. I'm not a good sniper. I'm not the best PvP player. I'm okay, you know. Granted, they're pretty much, most people that I'm gonna face are gonna be better than me, but you know, I'm in the upper 40%, I guess. This is what we're doing for Crucible builds. You know, if we're using Titan, this is the sweatiest thing imaginable. I'm not good enough with sniping to be able to use Cloud Strike effectively, so I like using Adored. It just the aim assist, it just feels better for me. Anyway, besides this, Path of Burning Steps, I haven't infused it yet because I'm only using it in low stakes Crucible. I'm not using this in high stakes Crucible, but Path of Burning Steps and Igneous Hammer, whenever I have felt the urge to use a solar build, this has always been a fun little thing to use in Crucible. The extra damage you're getting for Path of Burning Steps, plus Igneous Hammer, plus whatever solar kills you're getting, using Roaring Flames, you're going to be able to 2-tap with Igneous Hammer eventually, even though it doesn't have an inherent damage perk. You can stack enough buffs that... I'm sorry, no, Igneous Hammer has Golden Tricorn, so it does have a built-in damage perk to it, but it's not the best built-in damage perk. Pardon my take, but we're using Path of Burning Steps plus Igneous Hammer. And besides this, my most used Titan build this season is anything Armamentarium plus Grenades. This just works on any subclass. Armamentarium is one of the better chest armors in the game now for ability spam. It used to be Hoyle, Heart of the Most Light, but Hoyle got absolutely nerfed into the ground during Season of the Pirate, I think it was. So nobody really uses this thing anymore. It's occasionally good to have, but you're not getting anywhere near close to full value from it. ACDC feedback fences plus any shotgun plus any void build ACDC feedback fences are going to be crazy. I don't actually have them equipped on my character right now, but I was farming out new side and ramparts. I got an okay pair. A little bit high in mobility, a little bit higher in recovery. I'd rather have those stats put into strength, but I can't beat a 66 stat with a 20 plus 26 in my two main stats. But Saturn Ramparts have fallen off a little bit, but Checkmate Crucible, or Checkmate Trials of Osiris rather, or Iron Banner Fortress, these things are goated. Besides that, there's a funny stasis build that I found the other day. I actually haven't used this a lot, but it revolves around Behemoth using Diamond Lances and... where is it? I think it's Tectonic Harvest, but you're basically chaining. Yeah, I don't even have a fifth fragment equipped, but this is a funny stasis build, just using Diamond Lances. I played with this a tiny bit over the past couple days. I found somebody on Twitter who posted a video using this thing, and yeah, it's just funny. You can never go wrong with the Lorelei Splendor Helm in any endgame PvE activity using Lorelei Splendor plus any version, any variant of Sunsot build. I like using it with Consecration, even though Consecration isn't good right now. It's just funny to be able to get in the fight and stay there for as long as possible. If I'm using that with Heritage. Heritage has decreased in usage a little bit just because I think there are better slug shotguns that are available, but Heritage funnel web. This isn't my funnel web with rangefinder on it. My rangefinder funnel web is hidden in the vault somewhere. I don't actually see it. If I had a good Unforgiven, the Duality SMG, I would use that. I would definitely use that with this build, or I would be using another shotgun, Imperial Degree. I can't craft this thing yet, but this thing's okay. Now, besides this, what haven't I touched on? If you want to have a good time, using Ashen Wake and Crucible with fusion grenades is a really funny way to play. It's not good. It's just funny. You get max discipline. You use your Ashen Wake. You get an extra grenade charge from fusion grenades. I just completely ignore the unstopped champion utility of this. It's just so easy to go unstopped right now. You don't even need to consider using your grenade to stun them. But Ashen Wake, if you tickle somebody with any weapon and then hit them with the grenade, they just explode and you get a free grenade and you just keep on rotating and rotating. One of the first videos I made on this channel, I think it's unlisted right now, but it was actually a compilation of me just running around with Ashen Wake, just blowing people up. Super funny. That was the weekend that Hard Light was the most broken weapon in the entire game, so there was really nothing better to do just besides to try funny things, because if you weren't using Hard Light, you were just losing every single game. Besides that, always keep set to Dune Marchers. Yeah, it's really just for mobility purposes. I don't really use Dune Marchers for anything else other than traversal or doing any jumping puzzles if I need to. I didn't talk about Syntheseps, but Syntheseps and Lament plus double shotguns is a loadout that I use frequently for raid bosses that you can melee. So Crota, I don't use it on Atheon because they're just better. They're better builds to kill Atheon with. I'm using it for, I'm struggling to remember what his name is. The dude from Deepstone Crypt. Not Atrax, but the boss, the dude that's a replicator. So that's where we are at for this. And besides that, I got the 3 wayframes I used. Undercurrent is brand new. I literally just got this one. I haven't actually used this particular one yet. I was using a Undercurrent with Jolt Shot on it, and I really like that one. But this one looks super interesting with stats for all Adrenaline Junkie. Just, it does a little bit of everything. I like Explosive Personality specifically because of its built-in origin trait land tank. Getting land tank is crazy good. Tell me why I managed to figure out how to waste my my Dawning Memento on this thing, because I like using it so much. Explosive Personality is, I think it's better than Forbearance, but if I say that, I'm going to get killed in the comment section. So just for y'all, I think Forbearance is better, but I like explosive personality more on a day-to-day basis, and obviously Undercurrent is just a discount explosive personality. I know this thing, explosive personality, you can get it crafted. I haven't actually crafted this one yet, but you know, you get it with ambitious assassin, chain reaction. It just does work. But if you need to add clear, I think there's not better options. They're just more fun ways to do it, and you know, that's my philosophy. Or if you're not having fun, what on earth are you doing playing this game? Besides that, a couple other things sitting in my vault. I mean, I have this steady hand. I use a steady hand a little bit if I want to use a good 120, but then again, if I want to use a 120 more often than not, I'm just going to be using Igneous Hammer. I think that Igneous Hammer is just a little bit better than this thing. I've had this sitting around since, as you can see, season of the hunt. And you know, trackers weren't even my tracker on this thing. I didn't even have to equip for a while. People get jealous whenever I say I have this thing and just show it to them, because I don't think you can get steady hand anymore. And even if you can, get steady hand, I don't believe that you're actually able to get it with the current roll I have on it. I'm just checking light GG right now. Yeah, steady hand is currently out of the rotation, and whenever it does come back, it should have the same perks, but it's okay. I haven't used Succession in a while, but this used to be my mainstay end game. Nightfall weapon. I used it a lot at the beginning of the season, end of season of the Witch, beginning of season of the Wish. And that's not confusing at all. I would use Succession with my choice of secondary. I used Funnel Web a lot. I also used Shiura's, took it into everything. Same thing with Gnawing Hunger if I needed a little bit more range. And then for heavy weapons, as much as people say Thunderward is bad or it's unusable, or if you use it makes you look like a noob or a crazy person, you can't go wrong with Thunderward. You really can't. It's the best workhorse. I say workhorse a lot. It is the best all-around heavy weapon in the entire game. It does everything, especially with the Catalyst. You can trick yourself into thinking that it does good DPS. It does good crowd control. It's good for champions. It's good for majors. It's good for ultras. It's good for minors. It's good for just shooting a wall. It's good for everything. I have literally no other complaints besides the fact that people think it's good for damage. That's my only complaint about Thunderward, is that people are tricked into thinking that this thing is good for boss DPS. You might think it's good, but trust me, there are better options otherwise. Okay, so besides that, Cataclysmic, Song of Irrigate, Hothead. I've already talked about Hothead a little bit, and Terminus Horizon. This Terminus Horizon, I think, is a really funny. It's a really funny build to use. I'm not using it that often, but if I'm doing Terminus Horizon, doing something like this, really just running a grenade build, running other damage modifiers. This thing is really being used as a primary weapon. You know, you used to be able to run this thing with double special and just get infinite heavy. And just being able to use this plus Armamentarium, you could do this on literally every build besides Behemoth, because Behemoth doesn't have any good grenades. I mean, Berserk, Strandro doesn't have any good damage grenades either. But if you're using a light subclass, this thing goes crazy. Just especially using Arc with storm grenades. It used to be, but more recently using Sentinel with vortexes or scatters, or even Sunbreakers plus Thermites. You know, Thermites I would consider to be my favorite flavor of solar grenades at this point. So that's what we're doing. I don't believe I haven't talked about anything else. For obvious reasons, I haven't said anything about Divinity. If I'm using Divinity, I'm using it on my Warlock, and I'm getting to my Warlock very soon. Vex Mythoclast is actually getting a buff. In the preview that they said for the Twid, Vex Mythoclast is going to be getting a buff next patch, so we'll see what that's going to be about. I might review that, might not review it, depending on how beefy of a Twid it is. And Graviton Lance, I like it. Nothing else to say besides I like Graviton Lance. It's better in Crucible than it is in PvE, but I'm not really using Graviton and Crucible that much because the current meta just does not favor it. Heliocentric, this is a recent pickup. I think Heliocentric's good. Some would agree with me, some wouldn't agree with me. It's one of the better sidearms in the game right now. I don't like its recoil pattern. It just feels really hard to see for me. and it doesn't have the best of a hipfire, but I'm not the most practiced sidearm abuser, so besides that, everybody knows how good Wish Ender is, and everybody knows how good Outbreak Perfected is. Outbreak Perfected has seen a little bit less use ever since I started using Malfeasance, but I still do like to take out Outbreak Perfected because it is the pulse rifle I have used the longest. I've used Outbreak Perfected ever since Destiny 1. I was not one of the first people in the world to get it, but I was right behind just following math classes every journey. Whenever the puzzle for this thing was being solved back during Rise of Iron, it was very, very, very intense, very fun. I'm not a trailblazer. I just copied what they did, but got Outbreak Prime back then and still use it to this day whenever I hop back into Destiny 1, and because I have good fond memories of Outbreak Perfected. So besides that, I mean, I've talked about everything besides class items up to this point. There's no other Titan exotics that I think I would even consider using besides One-Eyed Mask. Nothing else is really good right now. I mean, just a quick look at this. I'm just thinking of build possibilities. If you want to be funny, you can use Actium Warwick with your Thunderlord, but you don't even need to use your Actium Warwick with Thunderlord just because Thunderlord has the automatic reload property built into it, so you're just wasting an exotic if you don't have the Catalyst. I'm sorry, if you have the Catalyst, you're wasting an exotic using Actium Warwick. Point Brace Cannon, I guess. I don't know. Yeah, so I've run out of things to say for Titan, so I'm going to move on to my Warlock now. And Warlock, this section is going to be the shortest. This video is getting a little bit longer right now. Alright, so we are here on my Warlock, and for the last and least complex version of this video, we're going to talk about what Warlock builds that I have been using this season. Now, Warlock is by far my least played class. I doubt that I have more than 100 hours this season on Warlock. I really only play it just for grinding, trying to get exotics or whatever I haven't had. I mean, I have almost everything at this point, so the only reason I'm doing Warlock at this rate is to just try to get really anything I don't have, and I've gotten all the exotic armor, all the exotic weapons, so we're pretty much done at this point. It's just doing it if I need to raid, pretty much. So my builds kind of reflect that. I don't use this for any PvE content besides raids. These are other weapons that I didn't feel the need to include on my other classes. Starting off, DMT, Dead Man's Tale. You can't go wrong with Dead Man's Tale. It's still okay despite having received nerfs. I'm never using this thing outside of Crucible, and if I'm using it in Crucible, it's doing it with a Solar Wings build, using Blessing of the Sky, I think it's called. You can tell how much I don't actually play Warlock because I don't actually know what the exotic armor piece is called or what it's doing, but Heat Rises, doing it with Heat Rises, Dead Man's Tale, it's pretty funny. Wishkeeper as well, use this a little bit for strand builds, not too much though. You know, it's brand new, so it's still being explored. Osteo, Striga, whatever you want to call it. This thing, I only pull it out if I'm feeling frustrated. And if I'm feeling frustrated, it's because I'm on my Warlock. And this thing, you're using it with whatever the heck you want. You can use it with necrotic grips. I don't have a good pair of necrotic grips, so I don't actually have one on me right now, but just pulling the one I use out of my vault, as you can see, the stat isn't that good, but same thing applies. I don't really care about the stats as long as I can get something to 100 in the process. A little bit less important for me to get 100 resilience on Warlock just because you have the built-in healing rift, but most of the time I'm playing Solar, Dawnblade, either Daybreak or Well of Radiance, like most other filthy Warlock players. Using Well of Radiance, I used to use Starfire Protocol, but Starfire Protocol got nerfed. I used to use Lunafaction Boots. Lunafaction Boots got nerfed, so it's really just a toss-up. I'm having a lot of fun using Dawn Course. I don't even have a particularly good Dawn Course, but using Dawnblade plus Daybreak, I just use that for dungeon bosses, just to cook them, just to melt them, especially if somebody else is already using some sort of support weapon or some support just to keep us alive. I don't like using Well if I don't have to. For Strand, I don't really use Strand on Warlock. I know there's one build I was trying out in Crucible a while ago, using the Threadwalkers or the Swarmers, but Tangles and Threadlings are getting nerfed next patch. Like I've mentioned the Twid before, it's going to be changing really, really soon. No Time to Explain is one of the better pulse rifles in the game. I use this when I'm playing Arc, and I can get my Arc buddies, or the Arc souls rather. I'll use that plus Lightning Hurdle, Arc Soul, with the No Time to Explain, and I'm using Aeon Soul, I believe it is. I mean, this shows how well versed I am in Warlock exotics, because I can't actually remember what the gauntlet is called. I think it's called Getaway Artist. I'm pretty sure it's called Getaway Artist, but I can't say that with confidence. Yes, Getaway Artist. Here it is. Yeah, I don't even have a good one, but I'll use Getaway Artist with this. I don't know where my good one went. I'm trying to look for it right now, but I can't find it. But Getaway Artist, No Time to Explain. Get the Arc Buddy. You get the Rewind. Rewind again, blast from the side. It's pretty good. Besides that, I have this Peace Bond that I'll be using for quite a long time. I like this Peace Bond. Rangefinder Headstone is an incredible little weapon if you want to run stasis builds. And if I'm running stasis builds, I'm typically doing it on Warlock with Cold Snap plus Ozymancies. I'll use this Ozymancies, Peace Bond, and I'll pick a shotgun or a grenade launcher. I know I like using Fighting Lion whenever I'm doing this loadout with Cold Snaps, Ice Flare Bolts, and Glacial Harvest. Some would say Frost Pulse. I'm not a big fan of Frost Pulse. Some would say Bleak Watcher. I'm only using Bleak Watcher if I'm doing Atheon. I don't like abusing Cold Snaps in Crucible. I just think it feels really cheap, even though a lot of people like using it. A lot of people are degenerates who use Cold Snaps, who use Bleak Watchers in Crucible, so I'm just going to stay away from that can of worms at all. But, I mean, Pardon Our Dust is also a grenade launcher that I'm using. I'm not really using it on Warlock per se. It's just here because I couldn't figure out how to fit it on any of my other classes. Same thing with this Breakneck. Breakneck, they just added back this season. It used to be my primary auto rifle, but Breakneck is back, Killing Tally is back, Onslaught's back. All the old good perks that used to be on the virtual weapons are back. This thing is a pain in the ass to farm. That's all I'll say. There's a reason why they changed it, and I'm very glad they changed it. For a funny build that I also enjoy using on Warlock, I will be using Voidwalker plus Vex Mythoclast, but I don't actually have Vex Mythoclast on this character. I'll be using it with Controverse Hold and the Scatter Grenades. Scatter Grenades are low-key the best Void Grenade in the game right now. I just think that they're better than everything else, just because even though there is no one-shot potential with Scatter Grenades, the cleanup potential from Scatter Grenades goes absolutely buck wild. And if you just want to be funny, just using Controverse Hold with the, not Feed the Void, but Chaos Accelerant. Yeah, it gets really silly. Chaos Accelerant plus Feed the Void. After pausing to catch my breath, what more is there to talk about? Well, Arc. Arc is the most usable on Warlock. I think it's just fun. There's no real reason not to be running Trinity Ghoul and Crown of Tempest. I use this build plus any primary grenade launcher or Heritage rather. I know Heritage combos really well with this specifically. I know Shotgun Bow, not the best combo, but it's a bow with a slug shotgun, so take that with a grain of salt. I really like using this. You get to just spam abilities. I know that this Crown of Tempest specifically, Zur sold it a really, really long time ago, and it was a base 70 stat, 30 resilience, 16 discipline, 16 strength. This thing had potential to be really good, especially with the changes that they made to resilience recently. But using it with Lightning Surge, I haven't been able to get a 100 build with this because I don't play Warlock that much. You can tell my builds are actually I'm still using old armor from Still using old armor from the dungeon. I can't remember what it's called. Yeah, I can't even remember what the name of this dungeon is. Duality, maybe, I don't know. And then besides this, Sunshot I use, Fighting Line I use. This Forge's Pledge right here, this is funny. It's able to get stats for all and one for all. I can't think of many other guns that can get stats for all and one for all and stats for all on the same gun. So this thing I just think is really funny to use because, you know, especially when you're playing 6-age, you just hit 3 targets real quick and then it just tears through everything. It's funny. It's not good. A better pulse solar is the Battler. I like using the Battler more than I like using the Forge's Pledge. I don't have the variant of the Battler with kill clip on it at the moment. But I had a variant with I believe it was Outlaw Rangefinder. It's sitting in my vault somewhere. You can't get it anymore ever since they updated the perk pool on it, and you can't get it on the crafted version. You can't get it on the crafted version either. But Ness's Obligation, good shotgun. Prodigal Return, good grenade launcher if you want an arc, lightweight, you know, breach action. Callus mini tool is spectacular. Best solar SMG in the game. If you need something to carry you through any activities, use a solar build as such, plus your choice of heavy weapon. I like using this Avalanche, but solar with Touch of Flame. Some people say, oh, use Icarus Dash, Heat Rises. No, I just like Touch of Flame too much to use Icarus Dash, Heat Rises. I prefer Heat Rises over Icarus Dash, but that's just me. Some more end game Crucible Lords will say if you're not using Heat Rises, Icarus Dash, you're actively throwing. So let's just say I'm throwing and move on. This build I use for a lot of things, as you can tell. Stat spread, not the best. I don't really care that much about stat spreads on my Warlock. This is a funny Aisha's Embrace triple tap Vorpal weapon. Used that one with triple tap 4 times to charm, but then there was no good artifact mod for scout rifles. It's only good if there's a good artifact mod for scout rifles. I've used this once this season, but I still have used it. Now, you can't get these anymore, but the Dawning Avalanche, these things are phenomenal. I use these for whenever I'm doing any solar build whatsoever. You know, they're really good. One of them, I wasn't able to get one with Rewind Rounds Incandescent, which is what I wanted. I have this one with Stats for All, but it has Incandescent and Vorpal, and then this one has Rewind Round and Vorpal, but it doesn't have Incandescent, so, you know, I keep 2 of them. I change between them depending on what I'm doing. I have another Hothead here. I have a Crowning Duologue. This is that Stasis Precision that I was talking about. This thing, I believe, is also going... No, I'm sorry. Precisions aren't getting a buff. This sword right here, I haven't used it for too long. I got it, I think, 3 weeks ago. This thing should, in theory, be crazy after the new changes, because caster frame swords are getting a buff in the coming weeks. And then I have Xenophage here. The only time I'm pulling out Xenophage is when I'm doing Oracles on Vaulted Glass. That is the only time when I'm pulling out Xenophage. They one-shot the Oracles, and plus, there's a little spot you can camp in where you can do all of the Oracles by yourself. I try to just do I try to solo the Oracles every time I can, and I only do it on Warlock because you have the Well Radiance or you have the Healing Rift, so those are the only times when I'm actually using Xenophage. And besides that, for other armor, you know, you got funny Mama Don't Worry, you raised a gangster, you got this headset here, and this is where I would normally keep my Divinity if it wasn't on my Titan. Just, yeah, everybody knows how good Divinity is, and just using this just makes it even better. Obviously, don't run double special with Divinity. You need all that ammo for it, but that's what we're doing here. I've already talked about Dawn Chorus. Nezarec Sin. This one isn't even infused because this one I just got the other day. It isn't even good. It just came out of an old exotic engram that I had from God knows how long ago. But I don't know. I don't even know why Nezarec Sin's included in here. I have not used it that one this season. The other one that I did use, I did dismantle. For gloves, Aeon Souls, they're okay if you're playing support. But if you're playing support, you might as well just use Cenotaph Mask or use a Well modifier. Necro Grips. You're only using these Necro Grips if you're using Osteostriga, really, or any other weapon of Sara. I know this thing can combo with Thorn, but even at that, who the heck is using Thorn? Who the heck is using Thorn and Necrotic Grip at the same time? I'm sorry to the one person who's actually using Thorn and Necrotic Grip at the same time. And Ophidian Aspect, you can never go wrong with Ophidian Aspect. This is a solid piece of kit. Now, for the chest pieces, I only use 2. Starfire Protocol, I don't use it much anymore, but I still use it. And Mantle of Battle Harmony. This one isn't even good, but Mantle of Battle Harmony is incredibly slept on. Just being able to have a built-in thresh, it's just really good for, you know, getting quick super energy. It doesn't work in Crucible that much, but it works in every other activity. Plus, you get quadruple surge whenever you kill anything, or whenever you get a pickup. So, for example, if I'm using this, running the multi-tool plus random insert special weapon here, just picking up a solar fire sprite, generating fire sprites, and just getting quadruple surge. It's just very, very easy. You know, you get it for 11 seconds, right? It's just really good. For legs, Geomags, you can't go wrong with Geomags. These ones I just pulled out of my vault for the purpose of this video. I don't actually know where my other pair went. I might be blind, but I can't see them right now. Boots of the Assembler, these are good, again, if you're doing a support build using Lumina. I like using Lumina with this. It's a little bit overkill, but it just feels like you're having a better effect when you're using those. And besides that, I mean, Lunafactions are good, Traverser Steps are good. I just pulled these out of my vault out of the collections for the purpose of making this video, just to demonstrate that those are things that I would recommend. But as you can tell, I mean, I'm not a seasoned Warlock main. I don't play Warlock all that much. I am mainly a hunter-focused person. That's where I spend the most of my time on. And besides that, I mean, this was rough. I did it in one take. I'm going to edit this down a little bit because I know there are a couple things that I do need to fix. But apart from that, I mean, I'm just going to upload this as one video because I don't think I can justify making this as 3 videos, even though it is an hour long. So thank you for watching if you did get up to this point. And talk to you next time. Y'all have a great day.